I've noticed a trend where Gen Z is mocking millennial optimism that occurred during the aughts and the 2010s. But I don't think you realize what it really was. Deep down, it was more of a coping mechanism than actual optimism. A lot of times, media and entertainment and art that's created in the zeitgeist in the mainstream is a reflection of the opposite of the way people are actually feeling. So if you think about it, we lived through 9/11, which was like a second Pearl Harbor. It was devastating. We started to realize that climate change was a real problem. We were living through the Bush administration, and truth was being broken down, and conservatism was rising as lawyerly rhetoric was taking over the country. And Obama was just a fantasy, and it turns out history showed that to be true. It was a fantasy that we desperately wanted. That's the only reason he even won to begin with, because it was the feeling of hope, that we really, really wanted that wasn't really there. We even had the fantasy of superhero films. We wanted to have, like crazy, this fantasy that the world could be set right, because we were feeling an existential dread, and our culture wasn't vulnerable enough to actually express it honestly. So we were just relying on this fantasy, this coping mechanism of media. I think honestly after COVID, the idea of being vulnerable just became more mainstream and acceptable. But before that, there was a whole hustle culture, girl boss thing, and it was just go, go, go. But we couldn't really reckon with how damaging this was deep down. And so we just kept focusing on these externalized fantasies of an optimistic worldview, but it wasn't real. That's not how people were really feeling. It's just the media that you're seeing from the time. There's a cognitive dissonance between the external media and the culture at large, and what the culture is actually feeling. This happens in Japan too with anime, because in anime you'll see a lot of strong female characters and a lot of queer-coded material, but Japan is extremely anti-homophobic and a patriarchal sexist culture. You're seeing the fantasies of the Japanese that are not actually existing in the real culture that's lived. So whereas millennial media and its optimism was hiding people's personal feelings of dread on an individual level, I think Gen Z media that's being so entertainment data driven is a way to distract from how the world is falling apart, the whole world, because now we're more of on a global stage than we've ever been before, because media is a distorted reflection, and most often what's underneath the surface is not what you think it is.